Welcome back to TAPintoTV. I am Brian Brodeur, coming to you from East Main Media Studios in Little Falls, New Jersey. On this week's show, we visit the birthplace of rock and roll, the legendary Sun Studio in Memphis, Tennessee. And we speak to business development expert Danny Wood about his career and the state of selling during COVID-19. Clinical psychologist Meryl Dorf gives us some advice about surviving political discussions with family members. But first up, Stephanie Willoughby speaks with tennis professional Mike Smookler of West Orange Tennis Club.
I'm joined today by Mike Smookler of West Orange Tennis Club. Mike, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good, thanks. So I just want to talk to you a little bit about sports and kids and tennis. Can you introduce our audience to your club and tell us what you guys are all about there?
We're West Orange Tennis Club. We are the largest tennis facility in New Jersey. When you come in, we have a 6-court indoor facility, which is you can see right behind me. And next to this building, we have a 5-court indoor court facility, separate building, but we have a hallway that connects. Outside of that, we have 13 hard-true clay courts, which are open from April through mid-October. And then we also just added 4 outdoor pickleball courts outside the building.
Pickleball's really become popular over the last couple of years, so it's awesome that you guys are picking up on that trend as well. Can you talk to us a little bit about what happened when we got the orders to shut down for COVID and where you guys are now?
Well, we shut down on March 20th, I think a day before the government shut down. And I kept working all the way through with the maintenance staff. We were getting the club ready, prepared, getting it COVID-proof, getting the courts ready outside because they're clay courts. We have to get them ready every season. We did a lot of painting all over the club. We were getting the flowers put up, making the place look real nice when we were ready to open up. Getting the shield protectors for the front desk, hand sanitizer stations for the club and on the courts, and really getting everybody as comfortable as we can when they come into the club.
I know that tennis was one of the first things that we actually got back. One of the first things I saw people out there really getting into and doing. Can you talk to us a little bit about the programs that you guys offer there?
Sure, yeah, thanks for asking. Look, tennis has a lot of natural social distancing, right? Being across the net, even playing doubles, you can stay 6 feet from your partner. Just have to make sure you communicate. And so we have a lot of programs here for a lot of juniors, a lot of adults. We have about 10 women's teams playing out of the club, playing other clubs competitively. We have junior tournaments on the weekends. We have junior clinics, as I mentioned before. I always tell people you don't have to be great. You just got to find somebody as bad as you are, and you can feel like you're playing the US Open. You get a good workout. We've been seeing people play tennis that I can tell probably haven't played for 10 years, but they have nothing else to do. They want to get some exercise. It's not only just great for the body, but it's also great for the mind. So it's great to see a lot of activity on the courts during this time.
I feel like tennis is one of those sports that's really beautiful to watch, and it looks really simple, but it's definitely not simple if you've ever tried. But you guys have some solutions for the little ones out there, or anyone really that's just getting started with tennis. Can you tell us a little bit about the coaching and then the different balls that you use to make it a little bit easier for people to learn?
So tennis is one of the last sports to actually adjust to the size of a child, right? Baseball plays on a shorter field. They use softer balls, basketball, lower nets. Tennis was never like that, but in 2012, the USPTA, the governing body of tennis, they mandated that tennis be taught to the kids differently. So for the younger kids, 4 to 7.5, we use a red ball, which is a bigger ball than the traditional yellow ball that we use, and it's got a very low compression. So the ball won't bounce over a 4-year-old, 5-year-old's head, and they could actually start to maybe get a rally back and forth with each other. The next stage from that would be the orange ball. So when they're in that 7.5 to 10 range, they'll play in the orange ball, which is, again, that is the size of a tennis ball, but again, low compression. Kids are still growing. It's a lighter ball. That's the other thing. A regular yellow ball that we as adults use, for a kid, it can be very heavy and kids can get injured. So the balls are better for them. It's a better learning environment for them. They also play in a smaller court, a 60-foot court. And then after that, when they get to 10 to 11.5, we use a green dot ball, which is, again, the size of a regular tennis ball, but a little less compression than the regular yellow ball. And so again, the kids can now cover a full tennis court at that age and that level, but the ball again is a little lighter, a little slower to get to, so you can work on your footwork a little bit better. And we're actually finding that this is a good way for adults who are trying to learn tennis to get into it. It's an easier environment to learn. So we're really doing some wonderful things in the sport. And our coaches here, we have over 20 all certified USPTA or PTR coaches. You cannot coach here unless you are a certified coach. So we're very proud of that.
It's so important right now that we have play. I find with even my family, like it's been one really good thing that's come out of this is like I am really good at playing tag. So maybe we could try a little bit of tennis together too and play that as they grow up. That would be kind of awesome.
That is what it's all about. I mean, before this, I was the director of tennis for about 7 years up at Sugarbush Resort in Vermont. And I'd have families coming on vacation for my programs. I mean, that's, as a coach, that's extremely rewarding. And it's just fun to see families doing something together. And again, these balls that I just mentioned make it easier for families to play together, right? So if you have a couple, a 7 or an 8-year-old, and you want to play with them, I'm seeing so many adults doing that with their kids and having fun, playing matches. It's tough to find something like that for families to do. And I tell you, I see more of it all the time, and what a rewarding thing to be a part of that.
I love that. And Mike, could you tell everybody out there where they can find you?
Our website is westorangetennisclub.com. That's www.westorangetennisclub.com. We have all our information there, our programs, adult and juniors, the events that we have, tournaments, and feel free to give us a call at 973-731-1740.
That's great. Mike, thanks so much for your time today. It's great to talk to you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
What is TAPintoTV? TAPintoTV is the flagship video channel within the TAPinto hyperlocal news network. Not only are we producing original video programming, but we're also developing branded content for industries including business and finance, health and wellness, arts and entertainment, and more. The TAPinto network reaches a dedicated audience of over 8 million subscribers and users, with over 30 million unique page views last year alone. Nearly 2/3 of the TAPinto audience views TAPinto content 5 to 7 times per week, and almost half of that audience bought a product or service because they saw it advertised on TAPinto. TAPintoTV content is automatically distributed to over 40 affiliate websites within the TAPinto network. And not only have we recently launched a dedicated Roku channel, but we produce a weekly half-hour broadcast television show on News 12 Plus, which reaches over 3.5 million homes across the tri-state area. We know how to tell your story, and not only can we professionally produce it, but we can effectively distribute it as well. For more information about how TAPintoTV can help you, visit tapintotv.net or email us at tapintotv@gmail.com.
To watch more TAPintoTV videos, subscribe to our YouTube channel at TAPintoTV.
The legendary Sun Studio in Memphis, Tennessee is considered the birthplace of rock and roll. Artists like Elvis Presley, Johnny Cash, Jerry Lee Lewis got their start in this studio. We take you behind the scenes, literally in the control room, to speak to engineer Pless Hampton and operations manager Zach Osborne. Zach, tell me a little bit about Sun Studio.
Sun Studio is a tourist attraction that's taken place in the Sun Record Company that Sam Phillips operated out of from 1950 to 1959 here in this building. Sam recorded artists like Elvis, Johnny Cash, Carl Perkins, Jerry Lee Lewis, and a lot of blues guys as well, the Howlin' Wolf, B.B. King, Jackie Brinston and his Delta Cats. In fact, that band is regarded as having the first rock and roll song. That's why the Sun Record Company is called the birthplace of rock and roll.
This place, a lot of the times we do tours, but also at night we record. We're an active studio. Every night of the week we've got someone booked. As soon as that last tour finishes, the bands are coming in and setting up. And so this place is a church in a lot of ways. It is a temple for musicians, for engineers, for people who like music, and a lot of the time for people who don't know anything about music, but they come in wondering. It's like you can come in here, get that education, and fall in love, all in a day, and sometimes even come back at the end of the day and record something, if you want to, which is pretty cool. It's one of the more inviting studios I've ever worked around. We just really like to make people happy and get people excited. And I think that, goes all the way back to what Sam Phillips was doing his entire time here, was getting people in, getting their mood to a certain point, and then capturing energy. So it's got a bunch of different hats it wears.
Well, you've mentioned the founder, the original owner of Sun Studio, Sam Phillips. Can you tell me about him?
Sam's career started in radio, and Sam's life started on a farm in the middle of nowhere. And the radio was that only communication with the outside world, the only picture you're getting of what's going on outside of this little area. Well, there's a lot of other people living like that at the time too. This is post-Depression. I mean, people on farms were eating, as Sam said, sawdust and bacon fat for breakfast. So Sam's initial draw to it was the idea of like expression and communication is kind of one of the most important things that we do as people. And so what he did way before he got into recording music was he worked in radio. He got a broadcasting degree and worked at radio stations. He moved his way north from Alabama to Nashville. And in his early days, he had visited Memphis as a teenager, and Beale Street particularly, where he couldn't walk on the street because it was a African-American only designation. So he walked to the edge, he saw it, and immediately fell in love with the idea that like these people are out here with nothing and they're happy as can be because they're expressing themselves to their fullest. And so he basically spent the rest of his life working towards getting back to this fabled city that he came to when he was a young man. That was literally his impetus to create a studio, was because nobody else would. Not in Memphis, because where the money was, that's not people who are buying race records at the time. So he took a huge risk on that, but he felt that it was really important. And as things progressed, for the first little while, Sam was losing his battle, miserably. There couldn't have been more abject failures going on and a more persistent reason to keep going, except that he believed in what he was doing. And so I always think it's kind of funny that the turn into the record production, the music production that Sam got into was almost accidental, and as a not necessarily survival, because it's almost the opposite of survival. He made his life 10 times harder, but he felt that he was doing the right thing. And that as opposed to modern record production, which is creating a product to make money off of, Sam wasn't, he would have loved the sales, I'm sure, but he was really most interested in new forms of expression that people could get into, whether they're buying records, which they weren't, or listening to it on the radio by the millions, which they were.
So look, you're a functioning recording studio, of course, but you're also a historic site, and it's great to visit. What makes visiting Sun's studio different from visiting other historic sites in Memphis?
One thing that I've noticed is that more and more people are coming here because we're not one specific thing. It's such an important decade, and it's because it's not centric to one person. We're able to touch on the whole thing. A little bit of civil rights, a little bit of rock and roll, a little bit of just kind of anything, just the whole decade. I think this place is timeless. I don't think that interest will ever decline. Because not only is it such an important part of music history, it's an important part of world history. It's one of the neatest things to open up the doors every day and just have a line of people outside just wanting to come in and taste it,
Without the legendary Sun Studio, modern music wouldn't be the same. We wouldn't have had the Beatles without Elvis Presley. And we wouldn't have had Elvis Presley without Sun Studio. For more information about the studio, visit sunstudio.com. As our communities begin to reopen, it's important for businesses of all sizes to let their customers know how they're moving forward, and we're here to help. The Tap Into Network is the nation's fastest growing hyperlocal news provider, and TAPintoTV provides unmatched video marketing capabilities. TAPintoTV utilizes multiple platforms, including broadcast television, social media, our brand new Roku channel, and don't forget the incredible online search rankings that our content delivers. When you're ready, we're ready. Call or email us today. We'd be happy to help. It's time to get back to business.
Let's take a look at the CARES Act, signed into law on March 27th of 2020. I'm having conversations with many of my clients about 2020 RMD waivers and Roth IRA conversions. First, the Act includes a waiver of required minimum distributions, or RMDs, for 2020. This waiver applies to IRAs and inherited IRAs, both traditional and Roth, as well as company savings plans like 401ks and 403bs. There are no special qualifications for having an RMD waived. It applies automatically. Finally, if the market is down, now might be a good time to consider Roth IRA conversions. As a bonus, in 2020, clients can convert all or a portion of their traditional IRA to a Roth IRA without concern about taking the RMD prior to the transaction. These details can be very confusing, and it's time sensitive. Please contact us for more information.
To learn more about Tap Into TV, visit TAPintoTV.net.
I'm joined today by Danny Wood, sales trainer and business development expert. Danny, thanks for taking time to talk to me.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you, Brian. Good to be here.
We have a lot to talk about. Tell me a little bit about what you do with Sandler training, and tell me what your expertise is.
Yeah, sure. So about 20 years ago, I got into Sandler training. Quite frankly, I had a successful career in the apparel industry for 16 years. But after 16 years traveling the world, selling to Walmarts, Kmart's, and so forth, that's what the world had become at that point, was a lot of mass retailers. I had decided your life had more to offer. I had 2 small children, a wonderful wife. Now I have 2 older children, still a wonderful wife, and decided to do what I was really what I wanted to do, what would make me happy. I was going through the Lincoln Tunnel, very frustrated one day with what was going on, right, and just in my business and in my life. And I plugged in one of my personal development cassettes, Deepak Chopra, and he said one of his, I believe it was 5 spiritual laws of success was do what you were meant to do. And I said, you know what, it's enough of doing what I'm not meant to do. So let me go figure that out. So I actually consider myself blessed to have found Sandler training in my journey. So I train salespeople and business development people and sales managers of companies and professional firms. So our philosophy, Brian, is to help them through ongoing training and reinforcement to make behavioral change over a period of time. That's what I do.
Let me follow up on that. When somebody comes to you, either an individual or maybe a company brings their sales team or their management team to you, how do you begin to diagnose what to address? What's the first steps for you as a training expert?
Here's how it works. The last thing that we want to do is be sued for sales malpractice, right? To show up, somebody shows up and we say, hey, you know what, here's a course for you. This is what you need. Works for everybody. I mean, that is just not the right approach. So what we do is we diagnose before prescribing. So we do assessments. We have the sales manager take an assessment. We have the salespeople take an assessment. And we put a team report together, a scorecard, and we come back with recommendations on what kind of program to put together, because people need different things. They learn at different paces. They have different strengths, different weaknesses. And that's how we, on one hand, Brian, people always say, well, your training really works. And I say, well, you know what, we kind of cheat. You know, what I mean by that is we do the assessment first, and I get a really good understanding of what people need.
In this age of the pandemic, of COVID-19, you and I are speaking at the end of August in 2020. I wanted to ask you about specific challenges that you see in the world brought on by our new normal or this pandemic era. Can you speak to that?
So what would a challenge be? A challenge is getting up to speed with technology. So not just having an account, not just, I see many people that say, oh, yes, I'm on LinkedIn. I see people with me, constantly looking to connect, but it's having a strategy. So I would say this, Brian, we need to make LinkedIn the center of our prospecting universe. Anything you do, any virtual trade show for the time being, any virtual networking event, any conversation, everything needs to go and filter through there.
It's interesting that you mentioned LinkedIn, and of course that was popular before the pandemic and even more popular now. Do you integrate these new technologies now in your training along with strategies and ideas that have nothing to do with technology? How does it work together?
Yes, without a doubt. I mean, we have it all is integrated. We have to have a good 30-second commercial. We have to know how to introduce ourselves, right? I gave a little bit of mine earlier, putting what I'll call them, instead of going feature and benefit, here's why you should buy from us. These are the type of people we work with. These are the type of situations they solve. What you want to do is relate to somebody so that they can say, when you're speaking to them, hey, you know what? Yes, those are the issues that I experience, because it's not about us. It's always about them. It's always about them. Brian, it's all about consistency. It's all about having goals and doing it. It's all about carving out the time to do it. It's all about having what we call a cookbook, which has always been part of Sandler's philosophy. If you want to reach a goal, then we have to reverse engineer where we want to go and how to do it. Now, have those activities changed with COVID? Yes. If we had trade shows in there, if we had live networking events, we're not doing those. Are we having opportunities to have a virtual cup of coffee? Absolutely. Are people open to that? Absolutely. So those are the types of things that we're suggesting.
Well, you mentioned getting together in groups, either in person or virtually. You're a member of the ABA Business Development Group, American Business Associates. Can you tell me what value that brings to you and the people you've met within that group?
Yeah, the ABA is a group of, it's not just entrepreneurs, but it could be top performing salespeople at companies. It's a relationship group. It's not just about giving leads. We do that as a result of getting to trusting one another, knowing one another. So it's a fantastic group of people. I like to say that it's a group with a heart. And when you put good people in a room with one another, good things happen.
That's great. Thank you so much for joining me, Danny. Danny Wood of Sandler Training, sales training and business development expert. Have a great day, Danny. Take care.
Awesome. Thank you. You too, Brian.
Tap Into is a network of more than 80 franchise local news sites with more than 10 million readers. Bring local news to your community while owning your own business. Tap Into provides you with the training, support, and technology to help you build a profitable business. To find out more, visit www.starttap.net.
Well, it is my pleasure to have clinical psychologist Meryl Dorf, PhD. Dr. Meryl Dorf, you have joined us in the studio today. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here again.
We've really enjoyed having you on the show via Zoom previously, and now you're here. So as usual, we have lots to talk about. So I have a very specific question for you today. As states are reopening. Now, you and I are sitting here in New Jersey, and New Jersey's going well into phase 2 and then headed towards phase 3, I think, currently. But as other states have varying levels of reopening, friends and family are gathering more. I wanted to ask your advice about how people can communicate, maybe some tips and tricks or techniques. We might encounter people with different political views, and this has been somewhat heightened with the pandemic. Can you give me your input on that?
Boy, it's such a timely question, Brian, because I know I'm so thrilled to be able to get out of my house and get into the world. And we had some people over in our backyard. And inevitably, everyone is thinking about the state of the world, which is so polarized right now. One of the things to keep in mind is that when you have a conversation, you want to think ahead of time. Is Uncle Joe really the person who is going to be open to hearing what you have to say? But, it's also important to think, am I open to influence? Am I really interested in hearing what he has to say? But if you make an assessment that, well, this is important, and someone has brought up an issue like masks. Should we wear masks? Should we not wear masks? Or who to vote for? Sometimes it's worthwhile.
So Meryl, do you have any tips or techniques or advice to help facilitate these kind of difficult conversations?
I think, if you go into a conversation and you look at yourself and you assess, am I open to what this other person has to say? Maybe you can have a conversation. But if you just want to go into a conversation and convince someone else that you're right, it's probably not going to work. I think you have to go in assuming good intentions. They're not evil. They're not necessarily wrong. You don't have to agree with what they have to say. But you do have to listen, as you said. A good way to listen is to ask questions. Ask a lot of questions. Because two things happen there. One is the person feels heard or understood. They feel like you are interested in them. And they'll be more open and forthcoming with their ideas. And the other thing is that you might learn something. They might actually influence you.
What if you've been to 40 family parties with Uncle Joe and you know that he believes what he believes and it's not what you believe? Do you have any advice of how to navigate those waters? Because you can't turn Uncle Joe off like you're turning off the news.
Well, I think I'd say, I'm going to go get some more salad. Some people
refill my lemonade. Pardon me, Uncle Joe.
Some people, I think, are not really open to having a conversation. Sometimes you just say, this is not a conversation that's worth having. You make an assessment and you say, this isn't really the goal of the party. We shouldn't get into a conversation that's just going to get heated. We're here to see each other and enjoy hot dogs and find out what's going on with each other.
So Meryl, what if you have a family member that seems that they're not taking the pandemic so seriously and you're concerned about them and frankly, the family? Do you have input or advice about how to have that conversation or how to approach that?
Yeah, it is a concern. Leading with empathy is really, I think, the most effective way to have someone listen to you. And then, hey, Uncle Joe, how are you feeling lately? How are you managing in this crazy time? Make your argument. Present what you have learned and share it with them in a respectful way and see if you can have some influence on that person.
Once again, Dr. Meryl Dorf, great advice, excellent insight. I can't thank you enough for coming to visit.
Oh, it's so much fun. Anytime.
To watch more Tap Into TV, follow us on social media at TAPintoTV.
Tune in next week for another episode of Tap Into TV. Don't forget to follow us on social media, and you can watch any of our videos anytime at TAPintoTV.net. So thanks for watching, and stay safe and healthy. And I'm spitting all over the table. So let's do another take. Ah, yes, anytime.